Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, have I actually read the Constitution? Many, if not most, Americans haven't. And yet every freedom that we're arguing about today, every right that we cherish, traces right back to that document. This week, I'm joined by someone who's making sure that the next generation does not grow up disconnected from the very thing that holds this country together. Stick with me. Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I'm your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. The D-Rate the Hate podcast is proudly produced in collaboration with Braver Angels, America's largest grassroots, cross-partisan organization working towards civic renewal. This podcast amplifies the mission that we share to foster a more respectful and united America where civic friendship thrives even when we disagree. Each week, through the power of story, conversation, and connection with incredible guests, we work to build bridges instead of barriers. Not to change minds on the issues, but to change how we see one another when we differ. Because, friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. So be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, share it with a friend, and visit braverangels.org to learn how you can get involved in the movement to bridge the partisan divide. Friends, I am so incredibly grateful that you have joined me for another powerful D-Rate the Hate episode. So let's get to it. In this episode, I'm bringing you a conversation that hits right at the heart of who we are as Americans. How often do you meet someone who has truly dedicated their life to reconnecting young people with the document that has shaped every freedom, every protection, and every guardrail that we rely on, regardless of your political, religious, or cultural worldview? My guest today is Joni Bryan, founder and executive director of the 917 Society, an organization that has grown from a simple question: when was the last time that you read your Constitution? Into a nationwide movement. Joni and her team work with schools, teachers, civic groups, and volunteers in all 50 states to put pocket constitutions into the hands of every 8th grader in America. Their goal for America's 250th anniversary in 2026? Distribute 2.5 million constitutions and spark a generation of citizens who know enough to protect the freedoms that they inherit. In this conversation, we talk about why constitutional literacy has eroded, why so many teachers have never heard of Constitution Day, why some people push back against civic education, and how understanding our founding principles can help bridge divides instead of deepen them. This is not partisan. This is not about slogans. This is about our shared civic fabric. Let's get to it with my friend, Joni Bryan. Here we go. Joni Bryan, thank you so much for joining me here on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. It's good to see you again today.
Good to see you too, Wilk.
Yeah, this is wonderful. When I found out about the 917 Society, Joni, and what you guys are doing, bringing constitutional education, getting constitutions actually out to youngsters all over the country, helping to reinvigorate that civic fabric that our Constitution is such a big part of, I knew I definitely wanted to get you on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. So let's start, Joni, with what brought you to this place where you thought, well, there's just not enough constitutions out there. There's not enough people that have read the Constitution. I need to be the person to make that happen. So
Okay. Well, that's a good question. Well, I'm the last person on earth that I would have thought would be doing something like this. My background, I actually have a degree in biology and chemistry, my minor psychology, and I was headed to medical school, and I ended up marrying my college sweetheart while I was in college. Had a baby not long after that, 11 months after we were married, and I shifted gears and I became a social worker. So I did that, and my husband was a public school teacher. And so fast forward, many years later, I'm living in Nashville. I was not one of those that was ever involved in anything political. I voted, but, I was too busy, with my kids and all of that and my career that I didn't really think much about it. I would just vote and assume people would go and do what they're supposed to do. It wasn't until I found myself divorced, starting my life over, and I was working at a retirement community. And one of the men who lived there was he was a former gubernatorial candidate in Tennessee in the 60s. And he had been involved in the civil rights movement. He had spent a lot of time with RFK on a court case that was really interesting to hear about. So he and I would debate court cases. He would love to, go back and forth. He was just a very eccentric man, but brilliant constitutional lawyer. And so one day we were debating a court case, the FEC versus Citizens United, or Citizens United versus FEC, to be correct. And he was saying to me, he said, now you realize that is going to make, the individual vote. It's going to take away individual sovereignty. It's going to give corporations and PACs all this money that they can, use in elections. And he said, it's unconstitutional. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't understand why, I really didn't. And so he pulled the pocket constitution out of his pocket and he put it in my face. Now you got to picture this. He's 6'5" to my little 5 feet. And he's looking down at me and he said, my dear, he said, when is the last time you read your Constitution? And when he said that, Wilk, I was like, oh my gosh, I've never read it.
Never read the Constitution.
Never read it. I remember 8th grade, bits and pieces. We took a test on the Bill of Rights, and I remember Mrs. Alexander's class. But after that, I don't remember much about it. And I didn't have any in college because of my curriculum that I followed. And so I thought, wow, well, maybe it's just me. I'm the one who fell through the cracks. So I started asking everybody. I asked the CEO of our company. I asked, everybody in the office. I asked the workers, everybody there, people in the kitchen, you name it. And I was getting the same answer. I would say, when's the last time you read your Constitution? And they would go, what are you talking about? And another thing, when he said the word your Constitution, it really hit me hard because I never thought of this as mine.
Kind of drove it home a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, because it was just the Constitution. And I just, thought of it as this old dusty document behind, a glass cover in Washington, didn't think of it as mine. And so I thought, wow, it's not just me. It's a lot of people. And I actually did a survey back then. It was like 99 out of 100 have not read it, of all the different, and I talked to thousands of people. And so I thought, well, I always taught my children, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And here I was part of the problem. And I thought, how are we going to really be engaged citizens if we don't even know what we're supposed to engage in? If we don't even understand what's in here? And I thought, wow. So we got a problem, and I knew I was part of it, and I knew I needed to try to fix it. And so I began thinking about it, and I started researching. And I learned about the federal mandate. It's 108-447, and it says all schools, K through 12, and all universities that receive federal funding are to have a program on the Constitution on or around September 17th. And I thought, wow. And it also includes federal employees, but I'm going to focus on education. And I thought, well, so we should be doing this. I don't remember anything about Constitution Day. ever. So I started asking all the teachers I knew, because I was connected to a lot of teachers through my ex-husband's career and just meeting people through the years. So I started going to social study teachers conferences, and I would set up a little table, and I would, I had my little information there, and I would say, if we had a program, first I would say, what do you do for Constitution Day? And most of the time they would just look at me like, well, we're in testing during that time, or we're doing this during that time. So it was kind of brushed off. And I said, well, what if we gave you a free program for Constitution Day? Mm-hmm. Would you like that? And they were overwhelmingly, everybody was, yeah. I mean, you mean nothing? You don't have to pay for anything? No, it's free, totally free. So that's how the 917 Society was born.
Nice.
And I wanted to make it neutral because it's not political in itself. Even though the Constitution gives us our rights, or allows us, or God gives us our rights, but our Constitution guarantees our rights to believe as we choose to believe and hold whatever political views, religious views we choose to have. I wanted to be something very neutral. So the 917 Society, I chose that because I thought, well, that's very neutral. And it also brings attention to the date, September 17th.
So, Joni, let me ask you this, because this is what I find pretty fascinating, right? You named the statute that says that every school that receives federal funding, K-12, universities and whatnot, that receives federal funding is supposed to have some type of program on or around Constitution Day. Constitution Day, September 17th. My question is, how many teachers, when you're out there having these conversations with these social study teachers and things like that, how many would you say, and I'm sure you don't have the number, but just a rough estimate, just a guess, how many didn't actually even know that 9/17 was Constitution Day?
Oh, most. Most don't know. And it's not just teachers, it's our legislators. It's everybody. It's never been honored or celebrated. It's, if you notice, when Constitution Day comes around, just as a nation, you don't hear anything about it.
No, you don't.
It's a blip. It's just a little blip on the internet. I search. On Constitution Day, we put a lot of stuff out, but we're small. And so we don't have the bandwidth. And that's, why I'm so thankful we're doing this podcast, because, so many people don't know about us yet. And so we're very grassroots. We started in Nashville. So it's amazing how many don't, because when I started this, and this is part of getting it going, I had no connections, no money, nothing. And so I didn't know, well, how am I going to do this? So my first thought was, okay, I'll go see my congressman. I'm sure he will get excited about this. So I went to my congressman. I shared all this information with him. I'd love to have a free program. All I wanted was him to, just point me in the right direction of how to do it. And he told me, he said, nobody cares about the Constitution, Miss Bryan.
Nobody cares about the Constitution.
And when he said that, I was devastated, because I really felt like, this was something our kids need, our country needs, just something to honor that day. I mean, this is what, the Declaration, we declared our independence, but this is what keeps us free. And I thought, we don't even do anything, to make it a big deal. And it is a very, very, very big deal. And so I was so heartbroken. I left his office and I was in tears. I thought, I'd been working on this for several months at the time, trying to get awareness raised. And I thought, if I can't get a congressman to care, how am I going to do this? But then he did something, Wilk, you never do. He made a Southern woman mad, because the more I thought about it, that's the truth. The more I thought about him sitting there drawing his salary after taking an oath of office to uphold the Constitution, and I'm working myself to death, and my tax money's paying that salary, I got mad.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to show you. And so up until that point, I really never even thought about it. One thing I'm learning as I'm working with kids, so many of our young people and our adults think the government has money. The government has no money. The government has our money. Yeah. It's our money. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to show him. So I got busy, and I was real fortunate to meet one of our local Tennessee senators, Kerry Roberts, and he was wonderful, but he didn't know there was a Constitution Day. He said, I didn't know that mandate was out there. I said, yes. He said, this is amazing. He said, I'm going to help you. And so from there, I started meeting new people and getting people involved, and it's just grown and grown. It's been very much a journey. Every year we grow a little more and a little more. Our first year in Tennessee, we were able to give out 25,000 constitutions to our local middle school kids. And we also have a resource page. And on that resource page, teachers have access to lesson plans, games, videos, anything they want. We want to make it all totally free. And so teachers don't pay a thing for our constitutions. And there's nothing in it either that would be biased in any way. It's strictly the Constitution, the Declaration, and then on the last page is the oath of citizenship. Because, if you're born here, you didn't take an oath. So we want our kids to see that oath. But there's no commentary. There's nothing to try to lead anyone in any view or any way. We just want them to read it for themselves and make up their own minds.
Right.
And then, of course, we don't tell the teachers what to teach or how to teach it, because that's not our job. But we give them free resources, kind of a one-stop shop. Anybody can go to our resource page, and you can print out lesson plans from lots of different sources. You can print out games, videos. We have, I think on there right now, a Bill of Rights. There's a 10 series, a video series on the Bill of Rights, and, just lots of different things on there. And we're continuing adding. Like right now is the 250th anniversary of our country, and there's a contest on there that America 250's running that kids can win field trips and fun things like that to landmarks. So we're always trying to add things, and other groups have essay contests, different kind of things. And we'll put that on there so that teachers can just kind of go there and find it. And it's not just public. We serve public, private, and homeschool. So that first year growing from 25,000 kids, it was 2016, the first year, I was driving my little Chevy Cruze, and I had Constitution boxes in the back of the trunk. And I looked like, and you're probably too young to know what a bootlegger is, but I looked like a bootlegger hauling Constitutions across Middle Tennessee.
So Joni, I've just got a lot of questions rolling around in my mind right now, and a couple of things that come to my mind right away. I mean, first of all, when this congressman says nobody cares about the Constitution, mm-hmm. I mean that's just a testament to how ugly things have gotten in our politics in this country. And hopefully that was anecdotal. Hopefully he's not. Hopefully he's just one of a very few in our government that believes that. But I came up with the phrase a while back, Joni, that says those who represent us are far too often not the best of us. But the reality is if we the people are not holding our representatives accountable mm-hmm. to that Constitution, which requires a certain amount of understanding on our part as citizens as to what that Constitution is, right? It's awfully tough to hold our representatives accountable to what's constitutional if we as citizens don't understand the Constitution. So right. I will say that first, and like I said, I hope that's kind of anecdotal that particular congressman is one of mm-hmm. very few who holds that belief that nobody cares about the Constitution, because I mm-hmm. think we need to. And if we don't, I want to just say right away that what you're doing is incredible, because bringing that constitutional awareness, that constitutional education to the youngsters in this country, and hopefully doing it through our schools is right. I mean, I think the Constitution is something that needs to be it needs to be taught in schools. It needs to be taught at home. How it is part of our civic fabric and mm-hmm. and our civic strength as a mm-hmm. country. When I think about the Constitution, and you mentioned in there, and there's a number of things that I want to get to here, but I want to kind of tie this up into a question. But when you said that in the pamphlet itself, or in that pocket Constitution itself, there's nothing extra. You're not adding in any fluff. You're not adding in any commentary. But at the back of there is that oath of allegiance to the Constitution and our country, and that citizenship allegiance that comes with becoming a citizen. Now, I don't think that excuses people that are born here from understanding what is in here and what that civic pledge, that civic American creed is that we have. You know, we are among the most fortunate human beings on this planet to be born in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. As a Christian, I believe our rights are given to us by God. Our inalienable rights are provided to us by God, and it's the Constitution that guarantees those rights, and it's supposed to be our government that protects those rights.
Exactly.
And in order for and that creed that we have, that responsibility we have as American citizens, doesn't end with just knowing the Constitution, but holding our representatives accountable for what's in that Constitution, making sure that they understand it, and making sure that they are doing their part to help protect our rights given to us. So here's my question then. Why do you think that there has been certain people, Joni, that have pushed back on you and your organization for trying to spread this constitutional awareness and bring it? I mean, I know I don't want you to ascribe motives to people, but I know you told me in another conversation that we had that there's been pushback. There's been people that have harassed and criticized you for doing this thing that you're doing, which I think is very commendable. But talk a little bit about that pushback that you've received, and again, I don't think we need to get into the ascribing motives or anything like that.
Right.
But talk about the pushback, because when I think about that civic creed, that citizenship, our responsibility to know the Constitution, and then to know that there are people in this country that are pushing back on you for just trying to provide this as a resource for people, it bothers me. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, the pushback, I think what I have come to understand, and I didn't understand it in the beginning because we just want our kids to read it for themselves. And we want them to hold it, and because it makes it real. It's their Constitution. And so that's why we want to do a printed copy, not a digital copy, not looking at their phones, to hold it, to be able to carry it, to make it tangible and to make it real. And the pushback, I think, for me, what I've learned these last several years, our country has become very divided, but there are also two very, very distinct views of our Constitution. And I consider myself an originalist. I believe it says what it says, and we have a process for amending it, that we can follow. So we have changed it 27 times already. We've made amendments to change it. So I believe in that process. But there is a view that if we don't like what it says, or the government, like it talks about in the Constitution, there's like 38 things basically our federal government can do. And the rest of the things are ascribed to the states, like per our 10th Amendment, And I think there are people who have this view of a very large government taking care of everything. And so I think that's where that big issue comes in, because if you read the Constitution, it is all about limited government. And it's about states having more rights. Our states are sovereign. Our states should have more rights, or do, as according to the Constitution. But I think our federal government has become so overblown and so bureaucratic in its processes that there are people that truly do believe that the government, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to sound strange, but this is what I feel from everyone I've talked to and the different issues I've dealt with. It's almost like government is God. They want to push God out of the public square. And we have a view, we have God is sovereign, or the government is God, and that is, I think that's the biggest view, because when you notice taking prayer out of school, taking all these different things that infringe on our right to our, free speech, our right to our freedom of religion, those things. I think that's the basic essence of it. And it boils down to, our First Amendment rights. And I think that they're just two very polarizing views of that. Most I'll get attacked a lot on, mentioning anything about God. Our Declaration says we were endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. But there are people that say God's not mentioned in the Constitution. God's not, well, no, yes and no. If you know our founders, if you know the true history, I'm working right now on a project where, I don't know if I talked to you about Washington's Walk.
I don't believe we talked about that. No, tell me about Washington's Walk.
Okay, well, the 917 Society, we are going to be going to New York on April 30th. And for the 250th anniversary this year of our country, this is a moment in our history our children don't really know about. And it's very important. Now, on April 30th of 1789, George Washington, he believed in God. He prayed. When he was inaugurated, he and his Congress walked from the Capitol in New York at the time to St. Paul's Chapel. And it was there that he dedicated our country to God. He declared that it was God's providence. And so that gave us this nation. And so we are going to, and it's called the Miracle of St. Paul's Chapel. And I was woken up one night with that word. And I'm a country girl. I drive around taking pictures of the little white chapels, and I love those things, and working on a farm, and I'm wanting to put a chapel on the farm. So one night I was woken up with that word, St. Paul's Chapel, and I didn't know what it meant. And I kept looking through my pictures. Well, did I take a picture of St. Paul's Chapel? Well, I went online, and when I typed in St. Paul's Chapel, the first thing that came up was the miracle at St. Paul's Chapel. I thought, what is this? I didn't know anything about this. So I read through it, and that is the church that George Washington walked to after his inauguration and dedicated our country to God. But it sits in the shadow of the Twin Towers. And when the Twin Towers fell and everything around was destroyed, that little chapel didn't even have a window broken out of it. And they used that chapel during 9/11 for the rescue workers and the firemen. That's where they would sleep. That's where they would eat. That little chapel there in New York. And so they call that the Miracle of St. Paul's Chapel because it shouldn't have stood, but it did. And a lot of people believe, and I believe, it's because it served a divine purpose at the founding of our country. And so we're going to go up there with the George Washington, and we're going to recreate that moment in our history at noon on April 30th. And we are inviting the president to come and join us and rededicate this country to God. Because that is truly, I think, where the big division is coming, Wilk, is that our country was founded. It was founded upon biblical principles. If you read our founding fathers, the letters, the things they wrote, you'll hear a lot of times people say, oh, there's separation of church and state. Well, that came years and years later with the Supreme Court case. Our founders were very much men of faith. Now, they were differing faiths, and that's the beauty of America. Only in America can anyone come of any faith or be an atheist or whatever they want to be, and they can live in this great country. But it's because of those principles that it welcomes everybody.
Right.
And so I think that is what we miss a lot of times. We look at it as, oh, if you think that our country was founded upon biblical principles, then you think everybody has to believe that way. Oh, no, I don't. And it allows, because of those principles, we welcome everybody in.
Right.
And I think that's what's being missed. And so that's something that we're going to be doing, and we're going to be, putting more out there. But I've got a petition going right now on our website. People can sign to ask the president to come and walk with us. And I also have the letter that people can send in. So we're just trying to raise awareness for that moment, because with this 250th anniversary, and we're really excited this year because of the 250th anniversary, we printed beautiful constitutions with a gold badge
Yeah,
that says,
I got mine right here.
you got yours, yeah. America's 250th, 1776 to 2026. And so it's on the front of it, and it'll be a collector's edition, we say, for the 917 Society. Our goal is to reach 2.5 million kids this year with these constitutions. And so we wanted to do that to honor and celebrate this country on April 30th, because it's something I never knew. And I thought, why did I not know that part of our history?
Right.
You know, it's a true part of our history that it happened. And I think we should talk more about, the faith that our founders had in our founding, and how it does make sure that everyone is welcome. Only in this country, is everybody welcome, and nobody is, it's fine whatever you want to believe or don't want to believe. But I think that's a really strong part of what makes America so amazing and so exceptional.
I think you're absolutely right, Joni. I think religious pluralism in general is a huge part of this country's, whether it be its founding or what makes this country strong. I am personally somebody who believes in pluralism in many different ways. Thank you for sharing the story about Washington's Walk with me. I had not heard that before, and every day I get to learn something new is just a very special day for me. So, I'm going to be looking.
Join us. Come with us.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking more. Maybe I will get a chance. April 30th. I very well could come out there and be able to spend a little time with you to recreate the Washington's Walk. That would be wonderful. But more than anything, Joni, I thinking about the history of this country, the history of our Constitution, the importance of our Constitution, especially. You brought it up a couple different times. The 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the birth of our country, July 4th, 1776, is coming up quick. 250th anniversary, and what better way for people in this country that we live in, to celebrate the birth of this country than to truly dive in, lean in, and understand the Constitution that was, and I do believe, Joni, that there was a large amount of divine providence that went into creating not only this country, but the Constitution that has helped this country to stand for now 250 years. I unfortunately believe that it's going to take divine providence to keep us together now, with so many people bickering and fighting, and the division that comes along with just the simple, being able to honor the Constitution.
Right.
There is a lot of bridge building that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
And I believe in my whole heart, Joni, that using the Constitution to bridge those divides is a great way to do it. It shouldn't be a partisan issue to say I love my country and I love the Constitution that has protected it.
And we wanted to start a conversation
that protects our individual rights. So as we approach the 250th anniversary, I would just encourage people, check out the 917society.org. This is a part of our country that should never be ignored. It should not be one of these things that people say, you know what, I've just never read the Constitution. I don't understand the Constitution. People are so worried about all the different things that they can't do and they can't control and they don't understand. What we can do is we can pick up a pocket Constitution and read it. Read it. Try to understand it. Find somebody else to read it with. Make it part of your ritual. Because as a civic, the civic fabric of our nation will only be repaired through action, and action that we can do as individuals. This is a very simple way for people to kind of reclaim some of that agency that they felt they have lost.
Absolutely. And they can be involved with us in that we do reach out to all middle schools across the country, but it's hard sometimes to get through the filters, which it should be, because schools, need to be protected. And so we have volunteers. You can volunteer to help get these to the school. We give them free to the schools, doesn't cost shipping or anything for them. We just ask for donations for people across the country. We do not receive state or federal funds. I personally consider that unconstitutional, but that's another conversation. But you can volunteer. So anybody listening can volunteer. You can go online, and starting in January, we'll start taking volunteers. So you can volunteer to get your school district involved. And so it's very simple. We just ask that you reach out to the school, let them know about the free program. And then we have some training steps to help you to, work with getting them to the schools. And then we ship them to the volunteers. That's why we were at the Moms for Liberty conference when I was with you. We have AMBATs, we have DAR, SAR, we have, Rotary, Civic, all kinds of community groups, and just individuals of people that just care. They just say, I want to get this to my school. And so we want everybody to get involved, because that starts a conversation. And then we encourage all of our volunteers, once you get them to the school, hold a Constitution Day event in your town. We have resolutions online they can download for free, and they can, get their mayor involved, or if they can just go to the park and have ice cream and hot dogs and just have a little celebration, something to commemorate that day, because it is such an important day in our history that's being overlooked.
That's exactly right. So wonderful, the work that you're doing, Joni. I do appreciate you. The website again is 917society.org. And yeah, these pocket constitutions are amazing. The work that you're doing is fantastic, Joni. God bless you for all that you're doing, and keep up the great work. And we will talk to you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Friends, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to get the D-Rate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. We really are better together, so please take a moment to visit braverangels.org and consider joining the movement towards civic renewal and bridging our political divides. This is Wilk wrapping up for the week, saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything you've got, and remember, it's up to you to make every day the day that you want it to be. With that, my friends, I'm going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.